Contours of Science Art Education, Pedagogical Principles of Art in Science Teaching, Lessons from the Global Science Opera, presented by researchers from Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. Background about the Global Science Opera, GSO. GSO is the first opera initiative in history to produce and perform operas as a global community. It is a network of scientists, art institutions, schools, universities, and various projects in all of the inhabited continents. GSO exists at the meeting point of science and art, of pupils and scientists, of all human cultures, and of research and practice. The research questions, aims, and objectives of the current study and presentation. Research questions. How can the main principles of art be characterized within contemporary education? How do art educators perceive and apply such characterizations when working in science art teaching and learning settings? The aim is to characterize art education principles from art science teaching, or perhaps we should even say within the context of art science teaching, based on exemplifications in the Global Science Opera, GSO. Therefore, the objectives are to examine approaches of art principles in schools and to highlight contact points in corresponding science art teaching based on the above-mentioned examples. The design, method, and object. The research design is based on two qualitative methods. First, an integrative review of literature and the GSO didactical material, which is related to that literature in many senses and ways, and semi-structured interviews with 6 art educators which have been or still are involved in the GSO. The object of research can be defined in various ways. Very generally, we can say that it is the Global Science Opera as a phenomenon or as a practice. And specifically, we can say that the object of research has been the creation of specific scenes in the Global Science Opera, or even more extensively, Global Science Opera annual productions as a whole. And when we refer to annual productions, it's important to specify that a Global Science Opera each year produces one opera, whereby a team, usually from one school in a specific country, develops a story, and the story is thereby divided into approximately 20 or 30 scenes, which each are distributed to a contact person or persons in any number of countries, usually, as previously mentioned, between 20 and 30. And during the course of the year, those contact persons, together with a classroom of pupils or artists and scientists in their region, develop an opera scene which usually has the duration of approximately 2 or 3 minutes, and afterwards all of these scenes are streamed in sequence, hence the notion of a globally produced opera. And so we could say that each annual production has been the object of focus for us. However, we have been, as previously mentioned, in dialogue with artists who more often than not have focused on the creation of one scene in a global science opera production. Our theoretical framework, as mentioned, is based on an integrative review, and we have looked at the following, or we have searched for paths on the with the intention of exploring and learning more about the following, we should say. Art as a form of communication. Art as creativity and development of artistic abilities and self-expression. Art as source of aesthetic and beauty. Art as means to well-being and social constructs for community building. Findings and discussion, slide 2. Art as creativity and development of artistic abilities and self-expression. The global science opera creates opportunities in space for artistic activities and exploration, said one art educator in 2016. The more difficult the subject is, the more creative you have to be to make a beautiful thing out of it, maybe, said another. The worldview is essential in the images you send to the global science opera. They bring in all their worldview in the scenes they deliver, but worldviews are totally different, so if you put them together, you wouldn't understand anything what you see. So you have to make a form out of it which, because not that one is better than the other, but you have to put them in a good context. It seems increasingly important to develop students' artistic capabilities. Normally, teachers need extra time to prepare curricula that involve more than one discipline and develop creativity artistically, said one of the arts educators earlier this year. Findings and discussion, slide 3, art as source of aesthetic and beauty. To make an artistically beautiful opera, because it can be scientific and it can be artistic at moments, but it has to be one beautiful thing, which is nice to see. I don't start with the wish to teach people something or invite people to learn something. I start with the wish to make something beautiful out of a problem. I want to develop my abilities around theater, so my thinking is in the theater to make something beautiful. To get unity is a big aesthetic challenge because it is so different from, there were people from totally different cultures, in parentheses, in the science opera, the global science opera. The realism of America, in parentheses, for example, is something totally different than in Africa, for example. Art is not a tool for science. Art is not a spice for science, said one of the arts educators this year. Thus, it is particularly important to avoid creating the false in combination disciplines need to make a good drama story based on science. Slide 4, arts as means to well-being and social construct for community building. They, the students, were so happy, and even today they are following every picture, and they are so proud that there was a picture in this conference of them showing to the audience or displaying them to the audience. They say, quote, you know, I'm really famous now, unquote, because they see the pictures and the opera is in different parts of the world. The globality. It's so fun to work together with acknowledgement that you are cooperating with someone from, parenthesis, from Japan, close parenthesis, Japan constituting an example here, which I never saw, only when he was just out of bed because it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It's cooperation, of course. We have to fix things together. The international thing, that's the thing that motivates me in this project to keep going. They, the students, learn a lot about other countries, and yeah, it's so much more than science, says one arts educator in 2016. The globality and internationality. You get in touch with so many people all over the world, then you speak about educational systems and funny things as well. You have deep connections with people sometimes. What we just did not in real life, in parenthesis, referring to deep connections with people all over the globe as part of the daily activities. Final remarks. Firstly, the present. The Global Science Opera fosters activities that engage students in collaborative work and encourage them to explore different cultures and help them to understand the importance of the world's community and partnerships. Moreover, the Global Science Opera has made connections to the art world beyond the school that allow students to think in and for intercultural collaboration in ways that reflect processes of partnership in art practice. In the future, we are seeking to strengthen students' artistic abilities and to help them perceive aesthetics and beauty in science, art, teaching, and learning. We suggest encouraging students to develop visual metaphors and to expand students' artistic abilities and intelligence through active participation in art activities in the Global Science Opera. And in parentheses, we would like to acknowledge that there are many ways to understand both abilities and intelligence, and we are opening up the discussion for various approaches. Close parenthesis. It is important to teach art concepts and develop skills that stimulate artistic achievements and to provide art activities and experiences that help students value artistic processes. Thank you for your attention.